Today I have two beautiful skirts to share with you. One is made in a woven, the other one in a knit. It's the same pattern and it's actually meant to be made in woven. So I'm going to be going over the changes I made to make it work for a knit and how you can do that too. So keep watching. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. This is a channel all about sewing, limitless sewing. Welcome back if you're always stopping by, and if you've just stumbled upon this channel, here I do a vast variety of videos, all very practical, all with lots of sewing footage for you to watch and to see exactly how things are done, so you can go and apply these to your own sewing. If you think that's really cool, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, tap on the bell so you don't miss out when new videos go live. Now for this specific video, there is a blog post also that accompanies, that touches on other aspects in a bit more detail, and where you can also see photos of the completed garments. I've mentioned before that I have really enjoyed sewing patterns from Style Arc. This is a pattern company based in Australia. I'm always waiting and I have a lot of patience to wait for their sales, 25 to 30% off. That is the time when I grab patterns that I like. Every month there's a freebie pattern that you can also choose and add to your cart without cost when you've purchased something else. So I've found out it comes out really cost effective. This pattern that I'm going to share with you today was one of those freebies that I got a few months ago. It's not free now, but it was a freebie one of those months. And it's the Canterbury skirt. And just looking at it, I like everything about it. The features of this skirt is that it has a fitted yoke, asymmetric front and back, with a zipper on the left hip, a rectangle waistband on the top, and then there comes another piece that is very large. Because of the way this pattern piece is drafted and how it's placed on the grain line, it's going to drape beautifully and look amazing. And that's what I hope, if it has to turn out like the line art shows. You know, the line art shows a really beautiful skirt. Style Arc has some patterns that are multi-size. Traditionally, they would sell in the PDF format just one size that you would choose, and then you would get the files for the size above and below. So if I chose size 12, I would get size 10, 12 and 14, like that. That's how I've purchased all my patterns. This one actually is available in multi-size. You can opt between sizes 4 to 16 in one, or the draft that is from size 18 to 30. I would love it that if you purchase this pattern, you could access the full size range from size 4 to 30. But unfortunately, that is the way they work there. So you choose one or the other. So I've chosen the 4 to 16 size. As I mentioned, the size range is really, really good from size 4 to 30. That'll take you from a waist of 22 and 7/8 inches all the way to 50 and 3/4 inch. And on the hips, all the way from 35 inches to 63 inches. So it's bound to work for a lot of people, and that's really good. On this pattern, they only provide finished garment measurements. So the body measurements aren't there. The body measurements are on the website, and they're just like general body measurements that they use, but not specific to this pattern. And just looking at these finished garment measurements, I knew I wanted a snug waist, so next to no ease at the waist. And then I did want 1 or 2 inches of ease at the hips. So just looking at these measurements, I chose a size 14. Now it is snug. I should have chosen a size 16, but it does fit me. It fits me fine. It's just, it would have been a bit more comfortable if I'd chosen the 16. But these are decisions that you make on the go. And as I've mentioned before, waist measurements do fluctuate. But you know, it still works. I mentioned I decided to make this in a woven and with a knit fabric. It's not something that you can just usually do without a little bit of thought, without putting a bit of effort into deciding if it's possible or not, and choosing the right knit fabric that will work for this design. You know, there's so many types of knit fabrics and they all compose differently. They all have different stretch capabilities. Some of them stretch horizontal and vertically 2 ways. And you know, they have different weights. Some drape beautifully, others have absolutely no drape and they're quite stiff. So it's not just about choosing any type. Looking at the woven design and how this is intended to fit and flow, I decided to go with a medium weight knit fabric composed of polyester, viscose and elastane or spandex. And this fabric came from Minerva.com. They sent it to me in exchange for a blog post. so that will appear on their website later on. Different content to what I'm talking about here. It will be a totally different blog post there, but the fabric did come from them. This fabric is not thin, it's not lightweight, it is medium weight. Touch it, you might doubt whether it would be appropriate, but what I did was get it, move it, drape it all over me, move it around and see whether I like the way it would flow. Okay, those bugs, cicadas, are really loud right now, and there's nothing I can do to make them stop their noises, so apologize about that. It's not that much stretch, but as I mentioned before, I was going to take into account the measurements of the pattern and see how much negative ease this fabric could deal with on my body in the way that I wanted it to look. So let's have a look at Up Close and So Personal, where you are going to see the different sizes I've chosen for each of these. I'm going to be showing you how I inserted a side zipper, and to point out, it's not an invisible zipper like it's meant to. It doesn't go inside the waistband as the pattern instructs. I do it in a different way. I think this has got to do with longevity and the quality of the zipper that I prefer most, which is just a traditional zipper. And I'll be sharing that with you, and also how I let my decisions just go with the flow and how I don't make them all when I'm sewing, because I want to see how the garment is gonna feel when it's on. So there's one decision I made right at the very end. So let's hop into all the practical sewing that you love to watch. I'm making two versions, one made in jersey and the other one made in crepe. So obviously a knit and a woven, it's the same pattern. And this is a yoke piece that it has on the top. Same here. The difference is I'm using the original waistband to put on there, and on the left hip I need to put an invisible zipper. On the jersey one, I'm going to omit the zipper, of course, because I could just pull it up because it stretches. And I'm using the waistband, but I just made it wider and shorter, 4 inches shorter than my waist. So I'm just going to put that on there like a yoga waistband, like I usually do. Under here comes a big sort of strangely shaped asymmetric skirt piece under this yoke. So I'm just going to be using a straight stitch for this. I will be using a zigzag stitch to put on the waistband because it's the only area that will actually stretch, or the other one should fit fine. And for this one I'll just do it as usual. Have to interface that one. I won't be doing that to this one. This is a knit one, and that's the yoke there. The wider part of the yoke is the one that would have an invisible zipper if I was making out of the woven as it's intended to, but I'm not doing that. Now this is easy to sew, but I make it harder on myself by trying to match every single stripe. So you can see a pin on every single stripe there. And down here the stripes go like that. So that's why you see them matched like that all the way to the bottom, and that's the same on both sides. And I'm just using a straight stitch. This is not going to have negative ease because designed for a woven pattern that's going to fit me. So just straight stitch them down there for the side seams, and to attach the waistband I'll use a zigzag stitch. Now to hem, this is an asymmetric shape here on the skirt, and there's this little point here. I'm going to do mitered corners here so it looks nicer. After sewing on the waistband, trying on how it felt walking around the house, and realizing that this type of material is not going to hold up because it's not got great recovery, you know, I was always open to the possibility of just opening up a little bit there, unstitching a little bit, making an opening, and then I've got an elastic to thread through. Tried it on against my waist to make sure it's snug but comfortable, and I'm just going to thread that through, sew it on inside, and then reclose that, and then this is going to stay up and not sort of fall down as I walk. This is the woven version I'm making out of crepe. This is the print there on the right side. It's black and white. I really like it. Gonna drape beautifully. So I've got the yokes on, the yoke to the skirt piece. I have sewn the right side of the skirt that goes on the right hip there. That's the shorter part of the yoke there. So that's been sewn, and I serged that prior and I'm gonna have these seams pressed open. I always think vertical seams like that look so much better when they're pressed open. On the left hip, unfortunately, there's no other option. I do need to put a zipper there. So I have interfaced that piece there. Just normal interfacing. I cut following the shape there of the hip. And I have pinned this side seam, and I have a mark there with a friction pen where my zipper is going to stop. It's a 20 centimeter 8-inch zipper. And what I do is just a centered insertion. I use normal zippers. I don't use invisible zippers. And I'm just going to do a longer stitch length up to there. And here I'm going to reinforce, and then from here down I'm going to do my normal stitch length. And then I press the seam open and do this zipper insertion there. So I'm going to sew with a long stitch up to where the zipper is, so then it's easier to remove afterwards. There is the mark right there where I'm gonna just start with the normal stitch length. So I'm gonna back tack here and keep going with a small stitch length now to the bottom. Here you can see where the long stitch length reached up to there, and then this is the normal one. So I'm just going to press this seam open. Well, both of the side seams actually, the whole skirt I can press open. This is the left hip, the left side seam, and I have pressed the seam open there. The stitches are long, they're just basting stitches basically. If you can see them there, they're quite long. And I have a pin here to mark where I changed the stitch length and where I did back tack to secure that side seam, like the normal stitch length. This is the yoke there, and the zipper does not go through the yoke, it's shorter, just there. So I've got an extra long zipper, it's the only one I could find. And I'm going to use it and just trim off the excess here on the top. So that zipper stop, that metal zipper stop has to be under this pin right there. So I'm just going to place it like 1/2 centimeter under, maybe 1/4 inch under there. I can feel it, it's right there. And now I just have to feel with my fingers. That's where the zipper is, right there, and it's going to be in the center of that seam. And I'm just going to pin it in place there on both sides. See, I can feel it, and I'll just go touching, make sure it's centered right there underneath that seam. And then I'll switch to my zipper presser foot and top stitch this zipper down. Once it's already sewn, then I can easily remove that basting stitch that is holding this seam together, and it just makes the zipper go in so much nicer and neater. So I'll just finish pinning this. Okay, so I've pinned the zipper all the way up to the top. I'm not gonna have the zipper go into the waistband. Whenever I've done that, I've always regretted it. It gets super bulky, the zipper tends to get stuck there, it gets stuck on the seam where the waistband is, and I just think it makes the zipper more flimsy. I don't know, I don't like it. So I'm going to trim the zipper there and attach the waistband there, and then have a little overlap with a button and a buttonhole. I think that's much more comfortable for the waistband and takes the strain off the zipper, because then the zipper pull is just right here underneath, and then there's a waistband. It's my preferred way if I have a choice, you know. I've got the edge of the zipper foot there on the left, and I'm going to guide that along that seam there to keep it straight. And I'm just going to go removing pins as I go. I've got my normal stitch length here, and I'm just going to start from the top. As usual, I'm going to pull these threads to help this get going. So this fabric wants to slip and slide everywhere. I'm just trying to control it here. I'm almost almost at that pin where I'm going to stop and pivot and sew this way. I can feel the metal right there. I don't want to sew up to that so I can crash on it with my needle. It has happened before. Then I just break my needle. So I'm just pivoting here. I actually do these by hand. I hand crank these because I am going through the teeth of the zipper. And then I'm going to go sewing up the other side of the zipper. So that is sewn on, and now I come over here where I have that stitch there, and if I just stretch this out a little bit, I can pull off that first stitch that was just a long stitch, and then this can easily just start coming off, and then you can see your zipper underneath. So I'm just going to pull this off. Okay, so all that thread is gone, and you can see that the zipper teeth are right in the center here, and these little bits cover it. And when you open it, well, pull is way up here. That's how it's going to be, and on the inside it looks pretty neat. This is my preferred way. I think these zippers last longer, and if you do it nice, it can look really neat. And I don't like doing it on a hip curve, but sometimes there's no other choice. Now for this pattern, the recommended fabrics were silk, rayon, crepe de chine, that sort of lightweight fabric that will flow and drape nicely. I've chosen a crepe. I would say this is a medium weight crepe. It's not light, it's semi-sheer, a little bit sheer. You do need a slip under it, and that I'm fine with that. And I love the white and black print on it. This has just a rectangle waistband. You can see the width of it is not that much. I know a curved waistband is always best, but when a pattern has a rectangle waistband, I don't mind, as long as it's not a huge, really thick rectangle waistband. Those will not fit very well. But this is quite narrow. I mean, it's like 1.25 inches wide, so it's not a really thick waistband, and that will fit fine. Don't worry too much if it's a rectangle waistband. If it's a narrow one, it will be okay, you know. And I have sewn the waistband on the reverse way, not the traditional way. I have shown how to do that on a tutorial. I will put the thumbnail here so you can see that if you haven't. It is going to give you really nice results. I promise, better than what you've already been doing. I know it totally seems wrong the way I do it, but it turns out beautiful. Everything on the top is really neat, the top stitching, and it's also very neat inside. Now the instructions had you put a zipper inside the waistband, and you will see a lot of ready-to-wear clothes that are like that, and you will also see clothes that have this type of waistband that finishes on the edge, and then on the other side has a bit of an overlap with a buttonhole and the button. Now I prefer this method. I think it'll protect the zipper. You know, the stress of the waist is going to be up here with the button and not there with the zipper pull. I think it'll make the zip last longer, and you're not going to have zippers breaking on you. Now it's not ideal to put zippers on hips. I don't like it. There is a curve there, and depending on your body shape and depending what size you do, it might be straighter if you're more of a rectangle or an apple shape where the grading from the hip to the waist has a different shape. But in my case, being a straight size where my waist and my hips have about 10-inch difference, there is a curve. So it's not great putting zippers in there, but I didn't really have an option to change it because I didn't want to put a back seam on this asymmetric yoke. I think that would have looked not great. So I went with it, but not the invisible one the pattern said. Style Arc uses 3/8 of an inch seam allowances, and I love that. I think it's awesome. And you can put a zipper with that seam allowance, no problem. You've just interfaced the inside there. Plenty seam allowance to install your zipper. The edge of the zipper will reach the edge of the fabric of the seam allowance, basically. Totally doable, not a problem. Now, I could have added a little bit to the side there where I was putting the zipper, but I didn't. There you can see the seam that unites the yolks there, and the side seams have been serged separately and pressed open. You can see the hem, very asymmetric. I've done a narrow hem, just serged, folded up and top stitched. Very neat. And now these 2 points, they are not 90-degree points, they are not exact corners, so that's why I didn't decide to do the mitered corners. To do proper mitered corners, you do need a perfect little 90-degree angle there, and it wouldn't have worked. So I've just been really careful to fold that neatly, and it's fine. Let's have a look to see how this one fits. This is the original length of the skirt. You can see that on one side it's shorter, and then it's got like a pointy finish on the other, asymmetric. And at the back it's the same, shorter here on the side and then longer. Very asymmetric. I really like it, and I think a type of fabric that flows and drapes like this is perfect for it. You can see how fitted this waistband is. There's not much give at all, and this yoke at the top as well, quite fitted to your body. And then it has this that gives it all the volume. The side zipper is right there, you can see it. Not my favorite to put a zipper there on the side, but it was the only option really. And I just really like this. I think it's gorgeous. Here is my woven version. You can see how stripy it is. So it's like a beigey color with a black stripe. On the Minerva site, this is described as a textured jersey. Looking at it and testing the stretch and everything, I determined that this didn't have great recovery. It's not those athletic type wear fabrics where there's a higher component of spandex, and when you stretch it goes back to its normal shape easily. This one doesn't do that. But because I knew that the skirt was not going to be extra tight because I've just sized down one size, I was fine with it. I didn't really need it to stretch that much, and yeah, I wasn't really worried about the recovery of this one for this design. You can see this one here, how it finishes. The yoke has the stripes going horizontal, and then I was careful to place the bottom piece properly on the grain line, and because of the shape, really careful to match the stripes on the side there. That did take a lot of pins, lots and lots. And the same on the other side. I made sure the yokes match the stripes as well everywhere. My eyes bleed when I see stripes not matching in ready to wear, and how some people just wear them happily, and I'm like, they don't match. Like, no, I can't deal with that. So I will go to great lengths to have my stripes match, even if they're really thin stripes like these. And I know it's a little bit controversial about sewing over your pins, but I will sew over pins when there's stripes involved. I won't actually sew over them. I will sew until the next stitch is going to go over the pin, and then I hand crank over the pin to make sure the needle's not going to jam into the pin. So when the needle's about to go in, I pull the pin out. So it takes me a long time to finish one seam, but it's worth it because the pins really hold that stripe with the other stripe on the other seam, so it does work for me. Even though I drafted another waistband, I made this waistband wider and 4 inches shorter than my natural waist to attach onto the top here. It still was big. Now, it wasn't big when I just put it on, but I wore the skirt around for a couple of hours, and because this fabric doesn't have great recovery, it just started to slide and fall. It just would not stay up. And this doesn't happen when I do my waistbands with other fabrics. I have 4 waistbands. I'm always buying black activewear material that I use for these waistbands, and they are really good. Like, they're thick and you stretch them and they recover and they go back and they really hold up whatever you put them on. Not the case with this. I really wanted to keep the stripes on the skirt, and that's why I didn't put a contrast black waistband on here. And then I just fixed everything, putting an elastic through, which is perfectly acceptable to have a wide elastic inside a wide waistband, because it's going to hold up your skirt. For this one, I also serged, folded up, and used a twin needle to hem. Was really careful with the points there to have them turn out really neat. I just took my time and it turned out nice. So let's see how this one fits, and you're gonna notice it's a little bit different to the woven one. If you compare to the other woven one, you would notice that this one's longer. Although I cut the exact same pattern pieces, I didn't make the hem longer for this one. But because of the weight of the fabric and the rayon component in knits, it usually does drop down and end up longer than you would have expected. So this is below the knee. Right there, the other one was sort of mid-knee. So I would say this dropped about 1.5 inches around that, but I still like the length. Still the same, still comfortable. This one's not going to flow with the wind like the other one was because it's heavier, but I still like the look, and I would make this in a knit fabric again. Up higher you can see this waistband. It's got an elastic inside, so it's going to stay put and stay up. I did want to give it the benefit of the doubt before putting the elastic. I knew the fabric didn't have great recovery, and although I made the waistband a lot smaller than this circumference there, it would still fall down. So I'm always open to changing things as the project goes on and after I've worn it a little bit. So you can see that it's nicely fitted, but not so much. And that's just going one size down. I could have gone 2 sizes down and it would have been fine. You can see the weight of this knit fabric and that viscose or rayon component made it drop. Whenever you make a dress or a skirt made out of rayon spandex, it's going to end up longer than what you thought it was going to be, and that's what's happened to this one, but I don't really mind. Now, to see a little bit more discussion about this topic and all the pictures in more detail, head over to the blog post linked down below in the description box. Let me know, are you happy to try a knit fabric on some of your favorite woven projects? I know it's not possible all the time, and it depends on the type of structure or the type of design that the original woven pattern has. I'm happy to do that, but with a lot of thought going into it, not just doing it, you know. I think for this to work, you could try any other medium weight knit fabric that has stretch horizontally at least. I don't think vertical stretch is necessary in this case. I think if you find a fabric like that in your stash, you can totally try a woven skirt pattern. It doesn't necessarily have to be this one, can be any other woven style, and give it a go with your knit and see how you like it. It's probably going to end up being worn a lot more and be super comfortable. I really hope you enjoyed this content. If you did, hit that little like button. I will see you very soon with another sewing video. Bye and happy sewing!